All right, so today's lesson is 3.08. So I think this one's going to be pretty short, and then we'll have a quiz. So I made a quiz on 3.06. This is about the mutations and stuff like that, so we'll do that quiz at the end, all right? So I think this one is probably going to be a little bit short. They're just talking about different diseases and random stuff like that. So, all right, so they're just talking about genetic factors, right? So basically a person, right, can receive they receive they receive overall how many? 46 chromosomes, right? 23 pairs, 1 set from the mother and 1 set from the father, right? So when the mother and father pass on their genes, right, then there could be some problems with the genes, right? Maybe one of them has a problem in it, right? And so a person can receive genetic diseases, if their parents, had some problems in their genes, right? So we talked about that, before. So they're just giving some examples here, right? They're saying some genetic disorders can cause a constant rapid firing of the nervous system, leaving a person in constant pain or discomfort, right? So some genetic diseases are problems of the nervous system, right? Others lead to increased fluid secretions that collect in the lungs. This limits the amount of oxygen reaching a person's brain and other parts of the body, right? So there's different kinds of diseases that are, some are severe and some are not severe, right? Or some are more mild, right? So that's all they're talking about here. So we have different kinds of infectious diseases. So this is listing all different kinds of diseases, right? So for example, the viruses, right? So different kinds of viruses, they have examples over here, right? The common cold, when a person gets a cold, right, they just have some sneezing and some kind of a mild virus. That's usually the common cold, right? So for example, between viruses and bacteria, right? Let's suppose someone gets like a common cold, right, which is caused by a virus, versus someone who gets like a pneumonia, which is usually caused by bacteria. Anyone know like what would be kind of like the difference between like a kind of like the common cold and the pneumonia, right? Both of them affect the lungs, right? Both of them can affect the respiratory system. What's kind of the difference usually between the two? Anyone know like what kind of differences there could be?
Viruses are like something which infiltrated from the outside, but bacteria is something which happened inside your body
So that's very
and didn't
interesting.
really come out
So
from
that
like the outside.
all right, so that's a good idea. So one of the things, so bacteria can also come from the outside. However, a lot of times the pneumonia, right? A lot of times the viruses you get from the outside and they cause the infection, right, and then go away. Now the pneumonia from the bacteria, oftentimes that results from the bacteria that's already within the respiratory system. And so what happens is that maybe a person has a weaker immune system, or maybe they get a virus, right? Maybe they get a virus, and so their lungs and everything is clogged up a little bit. The respiratory system is clogged up a little bit, and the bacteria that's normally there can cause a pneumonia on top of that virus, right? So not always, but as a general rule, you're actually correct. That's oftentimes what happens. The virus is from the outside. Bacteria also can be from the outside, right? But there's a lot of pneumonias that happen from the bacteria that's already there. All right, so that's a good idea. All right, any other ideas? Yusuf, you have any ideas?
Um, no, no, actually, I don't have any ideas.
So which one usually results in like a lot of like phlegm and like mucus and stuff like coming up with like different colors and stuff like that?
Brother, pneumonia, right?
That's
Pneumonia
usually
is
the
like
pneumonia,
your
right?
your
So
lungs are full of mucus.
right,
It's like
so
dangerous for your
yeah, so
Isn't it
usually
life-threatening? Like you could die, right?
so you could die, right?
Mm.
So with the with viral infections, you can also have mucus, but usually it doesn't change color, right? There's always like different kinds of exceptions and stuff like that, right? But like usually it's kind of still going to be like a clear whitish kind of mucus. With the bacterial pneumonia, you can have all different kinds of colors, like kind of like a brownish red, greenish, all different kinds of weird colors, right? Some of those things you could still have with the viruses sometimes, but it depends, right? So anyways, the flu is also a virus, right? So the coronavirus, flu, all these things are viruses. The chicken pox is also a virus, right? And warts, different kinds of bumps and warts can be a result of viruses. So viruses, right, are non-living organisms, right? They're basically kind of like, you can think of them as kind of like small robots. So viruses are not made of cells. Bacteria are cells, but viruses are not cells, right? And oftentimes viruses, they spread from coughing and sneezing and stuff like that, right? So they're just talking about some things like that. Bacteria, anything you hear like streptococcus, right? Staphylococcus, anything like that, that's going to be a bacteria, right? Anthrax, right? Anyone heard of anthrax? Anyone know what anthrax is? Like, where have you heard anthrax before?
Yeah, brother, anthrax.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard like people send it in like mails and stuff, and then if you like touch it or something, you could die.
Right. So
It's
people,
just that dangerous.
yeah. So probably in the news, people talk about anthrax when it comes to like bioweapons and stuff like that. They say that
Yeah.
some countries have like stocks of anthrax, maybe to use as like a biological weapon.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people have ever used it as that too often, but I
I've
think
heard
that-
serial killers have used it. Like there's
Yeah.
this guy in like the 80s who like sent like anthrax to, like 10 different people. He killed all of them
Oh yeah, well, I guess it could be. Yeah.
in the mail. He would send them like in in letters.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how he did that, but he did it in some
Right.
way. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. So we have tuberculosis, right? We have diphtheria, botulism. So botulism is something you can get from food. Like usually they say that if you have like a can, right, canned foods, let's say it gets like bloated, right? Like the can doesn't seem like its normal size. It looks like there's the can has expanded because there's some kind of gases forming inside. So they say that oftentimes, they say like don't do not eat the food in those cans because it could have botulism in it. All right. All right, you have protists. So protists are basically like microscopic organisms. Usually you get them from the water and stuff like that. So either water or insect bites, right? So malaria, right? A mosquito injects a person with a kind of parasite from malaria that causes malaria. That's a protist, right? So you have African sleeping sickness, intestinal diseases, so a lot of like diarrheal diseases and stuff like that. People often drink water that has different kinds of tiny microscopic organisms in it, right? So the water could have bacteria and viruses in it, but protists are a little bit different. Protists are eukaryotic cells, right? We talked about bacteria being like the prokaryotic, like super simple cells, right?
Oh.
Protists are microscopic still, but they are larger eukaryotic cells, right? So these kinds of things can be caused by protists. All right, fungi. So fungi are often like more like external. Usually they're external kinds of infections most of the time. You can have like lung infections and stuff like that. But I think most of the ones that are common are more like external. So ringworm on the skin or on the scalp, stuff like that. You can have thrush, which is caused by I think by Candida albicans. That's like a yeast-like fungus. So that kind of fungus, right? Normally it exists as a yeast, but sometimes when it gets the opportunity, it changes. The cells change from like a yeast kind of fungus into kind of like a very invasive kind of form. So it changes the form. You have athlete's foot, right? Which is similar to ringworm, right? So this is also caused by a fungus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Parasites, right? So protists can be considered parasites as well, right? But usually, I think here when they're talking about parasites, they're talking about larger multicellular kind of organisms, usually worm-like things.
Like ticks and stuff, right? Or are they called?
So it could be a tick, but a tick. So the tick itself doesn't enter the body. The tick can bite you, and inject some kind of. I think it's usually like a virus that injects.
Oh, okay. So anything that parasites that enter your body, like those little white worms that enter your
right,
and then come out of your intestines or something like that, or like
right,
start
exactly.
growing in your intestines.
Yeah,
I forgot what they're called.
Right. So usually
Tapeworms, right?
Yeah, tapeworms, right? So usually these are in the intestines, right? But they can also sometimes travel through and get to other places like the liver or the heart and stuff like that. So hookworm, trichinosis from meat, elephantiasis. There's different kinds of worms and things like that that cause these kinds of problems, right? All right. So this is just talking about how to prevent infectious diseases. So one is, when coughing and sneezing, right? Obviously, you just want to not touch surfaces, clean things with Lysol. I guess wear a mask or whatever if you're sick, stuff like that. Regular washing hands, I don't think there's anything new here. Just those kinds of simple things they're talking about here. All right. So we're going to skip this part. You guys can read about it yourself. So basically, the idea is just, some diseases can be spread from exchange of bodily fluids and stuff like that, right? So I think about these kinds of things, you guys can just kind of read yourself. I think most of the time, right? So I think the last one is about food contamination and water contamination. So sometimes you'll hear like that, oh, this hamburger meat has been recalled or something like that, right? Or spinach is being recalled. Like, if you bought this kind of spinach, this brand of spinach from this day to this day, return it to the store, stuff like that, right? So oftentimes, different kinds of bacteria, viruses, usually bacteria are found, can be spread through the water or through agricultural, through the agricultural system. So one of the things is because now, like for example, when, most people, they buy hamburger meat from the store and stuff like that, right? So what happens is that, let's say one cow is sick or something, right? And the bacteria gets on that hamburger, right? So what they do is that when you go to the store, right? If you're buying, not from if you buy from from the 786 store, stuff like that, I think usually it's a little bit different. But when most people, they go to the store and they buy like the hamburger meat, right? Then that hamburger meat is not just from one cow, right? They take like the hamburger meat from one cow and it's all mixed together with like hundreds and probably sometimes thousands of different cows. And so the bacteria from one can get spread to all of them. So it's not just like one person who's gonna get a packet that makes them sick. It could be like lots and lots of people, right? So yeah. There's different kinds of things like that causes microorganisms to be spread through agriculture. Sometimes it can get on spinach and lettuce and things like that. And so people, if they eat it raw, then if it's not cooked, then people can get sick, right? So they're recommending a few different things, right? So usually these things, they cause diarrhea and vomiting and stuff like that. Usually because you're eating it, right? So this is like infects the digestive system.
Like food poisoning, right?
Yeah, food poisoning, stuff like that. So it can cause different kinds of things, right? Sometimes it just causes some vomiting and that's it. Sometimes it causes watery diarrhea. Sometimes if the bacteria is dangerous, is really dangerous, it starts to invade the intestines as it's going through, and then a person can even get like bloody diarrhea, right? Uh-huh. So there's different levels of how dangerous this can be, right? So they're recommending different things here. First of all, make sure the water is clean and filtered and stuff like that. Wash fruits and vegetables. Try to cook food as much as possible. If you're eating meat, usually you have to cook it, thoroughly, especially hamburger meat, right? Usually other kinds of meat, usually other kinds of meat, as long as you cook the outside, right, that's where the bacteria is, right? Usually the inside of the meat is sterile. But in hamburger meat, because you've already chopped it up into pieces, right, the inside of the hamburger patty or whatever was before exposed to the outside. So there could be bacteria inside as well. So basically the idea is to just try to cook meat as well as possible. Here they're just talking about random things. Exercise and diet is very important.
Random things.
So to reduce the risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and other kinds of metabolic diseases like that, then you want to have a good diet and exercise. They're talking about not abusing different kinds of drugs and things like that. There's prescription drugs, right, that people can abuse, right? So, for example, there's over-the-counter drugs and things like that that people get over-the-counter, alcohol, and then some people they get
Yeah.
addicted to like opioids and Xanax, right? So, what are opioids used for? Use of? Do you know? Do you guys know what are opioids usually supposed to be used for?
Opioids are usually used for. I think they're used for antidepressant. I mean, like antidepressants. I'm not sure though.
Antidepressant, not sure.
And something relating to birth control or something like that.
All right, Anas, have you heard about opioids? What are opioids?
Brother, I never heard about this.
I've never heard about it. So opioids are basically like a pain medication. So usually when after a surgery and stuff like that, right? So there's
Painkillers?
different kinds of pain medications, like Tylenol, Advil, right?
Oh.
These kinds of things, right, are over the counter, right? So usually you want to try to take, if a person has pain, you want to try and take like the minimum amount that controls the pain, right? Right. You don't want to take, the maximum amount. So you want to take the minimum amount. So usually things like Tylenol, Advil, if you take a lot of it, they can have damaging side effects, but it's difficult for someone to get addicted to it, right? I don't think I've ever heard of people getting like addicted to that. But opioids, basically, it's like a stronger kind of pain medication. So opioids are the same thing as like cocaine, heroin, stuff like
Heroin,
that.
yeah.
But there's all
Heroin is like
different
one of the
types. There's like many different types of opioids. So basically, when a person gets like surgery or something like that, maybe they have chronic pain. Sometimes they're given opioids, and sometimes people get addicted to it. And so now they need more and more and more just to stay, avoid pain. So so that can be dangerous, and people can get addicted to it.
Wait, it says over here, depressants, and it says barbiturates, opiates. Are opiates or opioids, or are they the same thing? Opiates and opioids, or is that different?
Yeah, I think that's basically the same thing.
That's different. Oh, it's the same thing. All right. So then they're depressants too, right? Opioids, like the painkiller, like the effect of it's like the same thing as a depressant.
Yeah, so I guess they can be used for the same thing.
Yeah.
I think generally they're used for pain, but I guess they can be used for other things as well.
Yeah.
So people also.
I mean, every drug has side effects, so I guess that's like its side effects.
Right,
There's
yeah.
a lot of side effects. with
Yeah, so
depression.
basically everything has side effects, right?
Mm.
So people also use alcohol, tobacco, different kinds of stimulants, steroids for like trying to get become stronger if they're working out and stuff like that. So all these things can have different kinds of problems. So they're talking about some kinds of things here like alcohol, right? So alcohol, people can people can have kidney problems, liver problems, even heart problems, all different kinds of things. In addition, it slows the function of the central nervous system. So they say that reaction time goes down if a person uses alcohol. So that's why they say that when a person drinks, then they shouldn't drive, right? Because people are not going to react to things around them very quickly.
Doesn't it also like if you drink it too much, it affects your liver and your bladder, like puts it in danger? I've heard it's not good for your liver.
Yes, all those things can happen. So liver, kidney, heart, all those can be affected.
Mm.
All right, so
But
depression.
what's an inhalant?
I don't remember. Let me see. Which page is that on?
Same page, but like I don't really get it. Mm.
Oh, I think this is like when people are sniffing, like people sniff glue and stuff like that. So I guess it's supposed to like make a person high or something like that. So I guess inhalation means like breathing in, right? So I think these are things like people will take like paint or gasoline.
Oh, but it just brother, gasoline. Brother, if you take gasoline, you're gonna die. You don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, using inhaler even once can be deadly. It says right here, actually.
Yeah. So I guess
But
I think people say that like you get high if you, like people I guess for a little while they feel good or
really,
something if you take inhalants.
our brother, we'll try it one time, all right? We'll try nitrous oxide, brother.
All right, just one.
You're encouraging me to do that.
All right.
It says mind-altering effect. That's what I was asking, because like, what does
Yeah.
that mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think mind altering. I guess it's supposed to like make a person, feel elated or feel good for a little bit, something like that.
Yeah, laughing gas.
Yeah. I think so.
Isn't
I think,
is
yeah.
what is anesthesia? Anesthesia is a inhalant, right?
So I think nitrous oxide when you go to the
Is
dentist.
anesthesia.
Yeah. So I think nitrous oxide. I think so. Anesthesia can be in like all different kinds of forms. So.
Oh, all right.
So I think the one they give you nitrous oxide, the laughing gas. I think they use that
Huh.
when you go to the dentist. Do you know like
Exactly.
I don't think for adults, but
When
like
you get like root canals and stuff.
yeah. So I think not so much for adults, but like
Yeah, because it happened to my little brother. He had like a root canal or something with his teeth, and they gave him anesthesia. And I just read it's an inhalant, right? So he's the
right.
nitrous
So
oxide.
I think if there's a procedure, usually they probably give mostly like injections, but this is one of those. I think this is like
They gave a mask. They gave a
oh, they gave a
mask, and
mask?
he inhaled it.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe they give them some of this too.
Using an inhalant even once can be deadly. That's why it's dangerous to use anesthesia.
Yeah. So I think at the dentist's office, I guess they probably use it in like very low quantities and stuff like that.
Very low, like a very low, like, but still.
Right. All right, so
Still,
we have stimulants. Stimulants are drugs that temporarily improve physical or mental performance. So stimulants means to like speed things up, right? So these different kinds of things, caffeine, cocaine. I think crack is like a type of cocaine, and
Yeah.
methamphetamines.
Street cocaine.
I guess for a while they cause an increase in the activity of the brain and the spinal cord, but too much of it. So I guess people use caffeine just to stay awake and stuff like that. But there's all kinds of side effects. So a lot of these things they constrict the blood vessels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if you constrict the blood vessels, then obviously blood is not going to go to the heart and other places.
You could
you
get
know,
like
as well.
strokes and stuff with that, right?
Yeah. So with cocaine and crack, that's like common. People that can have heart attacks, strokes, stuff like that, with those kinds of things.
Athletes use stimulants, right? Athletes use stimulants a lot.
I guess they might.
Increased
sure.
physical performance, or steroids, actually, either one.
Yeah, I guess they probably use steroids. I guess they could use stimulants. I'm not sure.
I've heard athletes use steroids. I mean, stimulants too.
Oh yeah. I guess maybe. We have hallucinogens. That means that a person hallucinates or sees or hears things that like aren't there. That kind of thing. So these things, LSD, MDMA, and PCP, these are hallucinogens. So I think all of these things have like different kinds of random, side effects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Marijuana is,
THC.
yeah. So I guess people, I don't know. I guess I heard people use it to relax. So they include other kinds of things as well.
This is not legal, right? Even marijuana recreationally is legal now.
I guess it probably depends on what states.
Yeah. Even here, like people do THC in like Juul vapes and stuff. So
Right.
I don't know why they did that, but yeah, that is legal now. Yeah. It's crazy.
And then now they have all these kinds of things like club drugs. So, so they have a whole list of things that it does. Like, I mean, I don't know like what exactly is the purpose of people using these things. So I guess it makes maybe parties more fun or something. I don't know. Whatever it is. So, anyways, I guess there's like a whole list.
Brother, then if we have a party at ISOM, we should bring some too. All right, brother?
All right. So anyways, so they have like a whole list. So I don't know what they're going to ask about these kinds of things, in your assessments. But there's like a whole list of like different things, different kinds of side effects and things like that this can result in. Right. So inhalants. Right. We talked about inhalants, steroids. Right. So steroids are different kinds of hormones, usually testosterone and different kinds of similar kinds of things. So usually, I think people usually take it to build muscle, but it also damages the heart and stuff like that.
Even your growth, it like messes up your growth in many
Right.
ways.
So it says in teenagers, this can cause stunted growth.
Yeah. You a lot of other things, like a lot of other weird things, but
And then tobacco, obviously, tobacco is addictive. So nicotine is the substance that can cause addiction.
so what's the difference between nicotine and tobacco, brother? Is it the same thing?
So nicotine.
Or tobacco has nicotine in
Yeah.
it?
So tobacco is the plant, right? So it's like a leaf,
Uh-huh.
and so it has
Yes.
many different.
It's a leaf
Um,
plant, but then it has nicotine in it, right?
Right, it has nicotine in it. Right.
Uh,
Right. So tobacco has all kinds of different substances in it. So nicotine is one thing that's in tobacco. Right. So that's what causes addiction. So it also constricts blood vessels and stuff like that. So it can cause a lot of different kinds of problems. So tobacco, if you smoke it, right, obviously the smoke can go in and cause cancer. Even if a person doesn't get cancer, they can get other kinds of lung diseases. The lung tissue can break down. It causes mucus buildup, stuff like that. So
even chewing tobacco, right?
any kind of well, if you chewing tobacco.
Chew it, you can get mouth cancer, right?
Yeah. So chewing tobacco usually doesn't cause lung problems. That's if you smoke it, right?
Oh.
So, but chewing tobacco can cause, cancer of the gums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, the chemicals, they can go all over the body, and
So
so
they say still have the same effect.
yeah. So you can have cancer in other places, in the bladder, the stomach, all different kinds of other places. You can also have cancer because the chemicals are going all over the body. Right?
But if it's smoke from, like, say, like you're inhaling smoke from wood, like natural wood, is that bad? All right.
Yeah, I think that can still be bad because, so that can still be bad. I don't know if it's as bad as tobacco, but
Like to a high degree, it's bad, probably, right? But
Yeah.
not like just a little bit. Like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
yeah. So even like any kind of smoke can be bad, or if you especially if you burn things apart from wood. So I think wood, if you burn wood, it can it's dangerous. But what's more dangerous is like if you burn plastics and other kinds of things.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah, plastic or like gel or something like that.
Yeah, so those things they are very like carcinogenic. They cause cancer.
Yeah, they have like very weird things inside them. Brother.
All right. So now let's talk about sun protection, right? So the sun produces all kinds of light, right? It has the visible spectrum that we see, but it also produces UV radiation that we can't see. And so UV radiation can cause cancer by damaging the DNA. So UV radiation, so we talked about the double helix, right? We talked about the base pairs, right? A to T, G to C. So UV light is like a high energy kind of light. It's higher energy than the light that we see. So it goes into a cell. If it hits the cell and goes into the cell and hits some DNA, it can damage the DNA. The DNA can be basically kind of like fractured and broken, and mutations can occur. They can when the DNA is repaired, you can accidentally put in like the wrong base pair, and so you can get a mistake in the DNA, and that could cause cancer, depending on where it is.
That can cause skin cancer. It could cause other cancers too.
So I think it's usually skin cancer. I don't know if it causes other kinds of cancers because a lot. I mean,
Because you're repairing the skin, right? Because you're repairing the skin.
because UV light hits the skin, so that's usually what it is.
Yeah, so it's repairing the skin, and then it can mess it up.
And we talked about cancer before. So cancer can be caused by all kinds of different things: tobacco, right? UV radiation, other kinds of pollution. Some kinds of viruses can also cause cancer as well. All right. So I think we talked about this before. So this is basically just saying a lot of different things can cause cancer. Right.